If you're the strength and conditioning coach, D-line coach, I've been there. If you're out there painting the field before game day, I've been there. If you're washing the game pants, I've been there. Just do a great job at it. Don't focus on the end goal. When young Bryant Haines wasn't thinking about, man, when I make it to be the DC at a Big Ten, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about, man, am I doing the right thing right? Am I doing a good job washing these pants right now? Yep. And as soon as that was over, I was running to my position room and I was like, am I teaching the right things? Are my players executing well? Get lost in the right here, right now. Dig your feet in and be really good where the hell you're at. If you are, you'll take a step forward from there and then do the same thing. Repeat. And then one day, hopefully, God willing, you can look back at it all, laugh, and say, I came out of that house.
Welcome to Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. Each episode pulls back the curtain on the coaching profession, spotlighting voices from every level of the game and offering lessons and insights for your own path. But first, a word from CoachComm.
When the game's on the line, your play call can mean the difference between winning and losing. Don't let poor communication cost you the game. For 35 years, CoachComm has been the trusted leader in coaching communication, delivering solutions with unmatched sound quality, performance, and durability. That's why thousands of coaches in high schools across the country trust CoachComm. You put in the hours to prepare. Make sure your communication delivers when it counts. CoachComm, giving coaches the ultimate competitive edge. Visit CoachComm.com to learn more.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. Now, let's get inside the headset.
Coach Haines, how we doing, brother?
Doing great, Mario. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, man. I'm excited about being on with you. First and foremost, congrats on a ton of things, man, since the last time I spoke with you, but definitely congrats on the national championship on the main stage here in January, man. What an awesome opportunity to watch you guys get it done.
Thank you so much, man. It was, as I mentioned before, man, it was a journey, but proud to go there, proud to go to the top of the mountain with a team like this. I respected how this team went about their business, and they deserved to make it to the top of the mountain and fight for it all, and they sure did. I was proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, amen. Now, at the beginning of every podcast, we ask the question, what was that moment that you kind of knew that this was the profession you wanted to be in?
It was pretty early on for me. When I was a high school football player, is when I realized that I loved the game of football. I'll start there because a lot of coaches that play the game, they want to play for as long as they possibly can. So my dreams, my goals, my ambitions were all about playing this game for as long as I can. But that started for me in high school. Then moving on to college, had a great college head football coach by the name of Brady Hoke. And as I got to know him and that staff more, it just reinforced what I already knew. I'm obsessed with the game. I love it. I love the nuances of it. So it was locked in at that moment, but I still had these NFL dreams. So I chased that for as long as I could. It didn't make it real far. I got pretty banged up in college as a linebacker. I had a couple back surgeries and my body said, your playing days are over. Which wasn't a disappointment to me. I think at that point I was ready for the next phase. So it was a smooth transition from player to coach at that point. But it all started in high school.
Amen. Well, you talked about the injuries. I am going to brag on you a little bit as a college player. You were a 4-year starter, started every game as a freshman in 2005, led the team in tackles, earned College Football News Freshman All-American. Second team, 2007, led the team in tackles and ranked 36 nationally, named the Buckus Award watch list guy. So you were able to kind of get a little bit done over there at Ball State. And that was surprising me because I obviously know a lot about you from our previous relationship, but I didn't know about your plan days. Just real quick, because everything else is going to be chronological. Being able to see the game at linebacker is kind of like the quarterback of the offense type. When did you kind of know? I don't want to say when you were special, but when did you kind of know that you looked at the game differently than a lot of other people?
Fairly early on in college. Now, in high school, I played safety, so making that transition from the third level of defense up to the second level, yeah. I think for a lot of people that takes a year or two to kind of get their feet underneath them and start to see the game differently. As you mentioned, I mean, my redshirt freshman year, I was a freshman All-American, so I think that speaks to how quickly I was able to pick it up. And maybe that's when I noticed, like, man, the game seems to come a little easier to me than some other, because I can promise you this, Mario, I wasn't out there making those plays because of, my raw athleticism and God-given ability. It wasn't like that. You know, my mind, my ability to process some pre-snap indicators. That was my head start. That was my one-up on some of the competition. That's what led to some of those decent years. Now, what I will say is statistically, what you did not read off was the number of missed tackles, because I'm pretty sure, although I was leading the team in tackles, I might have been leading the team in missed tackles too. So
you got to shoot your shot, man. That's how you get the most
amen.
tackles. There you go. And just kind of pick up back off that before we kind of get back to your career chronologically. Leadership. You know, you're 18, 19 years old. I guess you redshirt, so you're 19 years old. You're in the center of the defense. You're leading guys. You're telling guys where they need to line up. Hey, move over here. You know, how does that help you in the long run? Just being able to be a leader early.
Yeah, that was big. I've always felt that linebackers are in the heart of everything. And I, as a coordinator, I pitched that same thing to my room. Linebackers should be, in my opinion, your most vocal player. So I ran with that. When I was a redshirt freshman, you know, out there, I was making calls and making checks to seniors and juniors. I was moving the line, checking the coverage. I was loud about it. I took confidence. I took pride in it. You know, I took pride in that. And I asked the same thing of the linebackers. But going back to the leadership component, leadership isn't necessarily just being able to make those checks and having that football IQ. It's, do people listen to you when you make the call?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Does your voice carry weight?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that's the separation between, yeah, you might make all the checks and calls, but that doesn't necessarily give you leadership abilities. When you can do both, when you can have a voice and it has sway, that's when you're starting to become a leader. I wasn't able to do that probably a little bit deeper into my career, but again, that's for most college football players, right? I had a voice, but I started to get more leadership abilities deeper into my career.
Absolutely. Now, let's kind of go into the ending of your career. You know you're done. You already kind of know that you wanted to get into this profession. The hardest thing to do is to get that first one, and you know, those jobs early in the career when you just don't got the network and you just don't got a bunch of things kind of going for you, maybe even a knowledge base, all those things. 2009, you get the opportunity to kind of start in a profession at Manchester College. How did you kick down that door to get your start in this profession?
I made a lot of phone calls. I emailed a lot of folks. I was reaching out to people, to be honest with you, Mario, that I didn't know. I leaned on the people that coached me. I leaned on my brother who was in the profession. I try to use whatever that network was, even at that time when it was really small. I just try to use every avenue and resource that I had available to me. So the college coaches, and ultimately it was the college coaches that helped me get that first job. You know, but if it's your position coach he's got a network all his own. Your coordinator, he's got a network all his own. Tap into those people. Who do they know? Is there anything open that's available? If you see something that's available, see if they can reach out to that guy. Does anybody know that coach over there at Manchester? Fortunately for me, Shannon Griffith was a Ball State grad as well. Okay. So some of the guys that were on the staff there at Ball State knew Coach Griffith, made that call for me and got my foot in the door. And then the only other thing I'll say is, Mario, you know the deal, man. You only get, you might get one or two cracks at that first interview, that first chance to, when you get your foot in the door, you better kick that thing open, man. So I did a nice job in my interview, and the rest is history. But that first one, as you mentioned, that's a hard one. You got to lean on every resource and component of your network that you have.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, we don't have to get into the details, but, you know, anything stuck out to you from that first interview that, maybe stumped you or surprised you, didn't know it was going to be a question, something you just flat out didn't know in that first interview that you had?
Yeah, I think for me, and I've always kind of been this way with interviews, is where I feel like I shine as a football coach is through schematics, through X's and O's. That's not what your first interview is likely to be. Your first interview is not going to be about draw up your perfect sim Tampa 2. Like, they don't care about that. They want to know, who are you? What are you going to do for those college football players in your room? How are you going to guide them? How are you going to lead them? How are you going to mentor them? How hard are you going to push them? So know yourself. Know how you're going to be philosophically as a football coach. Don't worry about the X's and O's stuff. Don't worry about that so much. Worry about who are you as a young leader of men.
Yeah, amen. Now I'm going to kind of lump these first two jobs here together a little bit. I'm sure they were drastically different in a ton of ways, but you also took an opportunity at Adrian College right after that 1 year at Manchester. Coach defensive line in both places, strength and conditioning coordinator at the other place. you want to kick into the profession, and obviously you had a wealth of knowledge. You were a great player. You understood the game, but then you get into some of these roles, and you're just wearing so many hats. Where when you're lining that field, nobody cares how much ball you know. Nobody cares. You're trying to put a strength and conditioning plan together. I don't know what your major was, but I'm sure you were digging, and there were some challenges, and there were some tough spots, and there were some late nights and early mornings and all that kind of stuff. Just as you are sitting on here with me, just reflect a little bit on some of the good spots and some good things that you got from taking a position like that early on, and some of the rough spots has just been a young coach in the profession trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah, well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, you end up doing some jobs as a young coach in those smaller universities, colleges, and no different than being a high school coach, right? The high school coach is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless them, because they're doing a whole lot more than just coaching football on Friday night.
Yeah.
It's the game plan, the lead up. You mentioned at Manchester, I was lining fields. I was running tape across town to flip film with opponents. And then the strength and conditioning component. Here's what I'd say about all those is lean into that stuff. And I think where it paid dividends for me is that I became a GA a little bit later in my career. What I knew is that there was no job too small for me.
Yeah.
There was no job too big for me. When you asked a young coach, Bryant Haines, to go do something, whether it's make a pot of coffee, make a cut up, go line the field, wash the helmet, like, I'm going to get that done for you. I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to take accountability in what you asked of me, and I'll give you my best. If you take that mentality early in your career, it'll carry forward. So yeah, that would be a message to the young coaches is lean into all that stuff. And even if you never want to wash a pair of game pants again in your life, that's all right. Just, do it for that one season and lean into it.
Yeah. Amen.
It'll pay dividends later, because you're gonna imprint that on your heart. That's what you're all about. Whatever the job is, I'm gonna get it done.
No doubt. Now, I don't want to speak for you here, but early in my career, I had the opportunity to coach receivers at a small school and wear multiple hats and not make much money, and do it again at a Division III school before I got an opportunity at GA at an FBS program. And, obviously in my own little world, I felt like that was such an awesome route to go, to have my own room to be responsible for, go and do all the little things that nobody wants to do because it's my job, and then go take that FBS GA opportunity. How did you look? How do you look at having those chances to come and be in charge of a room, the defensive line, be in charge of the strength and conditioning program, be in charge of a bunch of these little tasks before you get the opportunity in 2012 to GA there at Indiana?
I thought, to be honest, Mario, I thought it was the smartest thing that I ever did. I think it gave me a competitive edge, and then here's why. And this is why I would always tell players that want to get into coaching that I think that they should try to run a room as soon as they can before they become a GA, because, and this is just for me, this is my 2 cents. Maybe it doesn't fit with everybody, but I already was a GA those last couple of years of my college. Now I was still playing. I get that. I'm a senior at Ball State. I know the defense like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Right. I am already coaching the young guys. I was already mentoring the young guys. I already was helping the defensive line get orchestrated. I felt like I was in some of those roles. The only thing I hadn't done is some of those other GA things, like breakdowns, getting the coach's coffee. Like, I'm good on that.
Yeah.
I felt like I knew that way of life, just, being a graduate assistant. I knew what that was. What I had no idea is how to run the room. Like you said, put a lesson plan together.
Yeah.
Put a teach tape together.
Absolutely.
Put drills together and then run the drills effectively. Those were the things that I knew I didn't know anything about. So I thought running the room would be best. And that way, when I went back to being a GA, I had that depth of knowledge from what was I like at a coach. Now, when you're sitting in the back of the room as a GA, you're seeing this coach, Coach Luke Fickle, or Coach, Mark Hagan was here. And you're seeing them put their lesson plans together, their teach tapes together. It's like, how would I have done it differently? What did I learn from this coach? You have a depth of knowledge that you can go back to. How did I do it? How's he doing it? And now you're growing as a coach, as opposed to just another year being a GA sitting in the back of the room.
Amen. Now, in 2009 to 2011, you're 1 to 3 years removed from being a Dick Butkus award watch list, an All-American, all these accolades. the football, the X's and O's. You know, a lot of guys get on here and joke about, you know, you just don't realize how much you don't know once you get into the profession. You know, what was kind of that eye-opening moment from a schematic standpoint, from an X and O standpoint, when you're trying to coach those defensive linemen?
Gosh, there were several. I mean, it wasn't anything gigantic, but it was more about the drills. It was more about because to me, here's what a coach should do. A good coach should make an average player a good player, make a good player a great player, make a great player an elite player. You should be able to upgrade the roster through your teaching. And how do you do that? In my opinion, that's the day-to-day process. That's drill progression. That's the very, very technical side of things. And here I am, you know, as a young coach that played linebacker, trying to learn how can I do that to a 3 technique.
Yeah.
You know, how many double teams have I taken on in my life? You know, maybe 2 because we were in the wrong front on a 3rd and long. We got caught off guard. So learning the nuances, that the high detailed specific nuances of the position was a learning curve to me. So what did I do? Shoot, I made sure I took my butt to AFCA and sat in on some of those coaches sessions, those breakout sessions, and I took notes. I learned from other defensive minds. But it was things like that where I was like, man, I'm in over my head here. I'm not coaching this effectively. I'm not turning my bad players into okay players.
Yeah.
I'm not upgrading my dudes.
Yeah, that's big time. I love the way you kind of put that. Now, kind of same way, I'm going to lump these 2 years together. Obviously, you're at Indiana and Ohio State, 2 different spots, but you're a graduate assistant role at both of those spots. You know, what would you kind of name that chapter if you had to give it a name? Like, what was your takeaway from those early GA days at these major, P4? They weren't called P4 at that time, but P4 institutions.
Yeah, I think that would be like introduction back to big time ball is what that was.
Yeah.
Because you know how it is. I spent 3 years at Division III level, and I'm not knocking the coach at Division III. There's some phenomenal coaches at Division, good schemes, well coached operations, but all things being compared here. You step back into the Big Ten, you're like, oh my God, I forgot how well coached and how intricate this stuff is. Right. So it almost took me out of the smaller time ball feel and back into I forgot that there's levels to this thing. So that was like a reintroduction back to big time ball. And now, granted, I'm armed a little bit more effectively now. Those 3 years of coaching Division III, I took a lot of learning. I started getting better at my belief system, my drill progression. So now I'm coming in as a GA and I'm armed with more information. But it was still an eye opener coming back to the big time.
Absolutely. Now, once again, I kind of want to jump in a moment here a little bit. Obviously, the big talk around you guys and just how successful the last couple of seasons has been was probably more about the run of the last 2-3 decades in Indiana, where the program just hasn't been uber competitive in regards to championships and bowl games and etc. So in 2012, just comparing it to now, not necessarily what happens on the field, but what has changed around there, whether it's facilities, or what has changed between your 2 different stops there?
Yeah, a lot has changed. You could definitely point to the facilities. I don't think that's the biggest change of the full thing, but there's definitely advancements. We made a number of changes to the locker room, to the team room, where our guys get our meals. We have this end zone. You probably see it over here on my shoulder here, but this end zone when I was here as the GA was just a big hill. Okay. They closed this thing off. That's where all the guys eat. There's athletic training in there with whirlpools and just the top end equipment. So we've upgraded facilities. To me, the difference is it's the players, it's the buy-in. I mean, I've been with Coach Signetti for a long time. I know what he wants. He's going to bring people into this organization that are ball. They're all ball. They're all ball all the time. I was here before when guys weren't here because they wanted to be a Big Ten champion. Yeah. Maybe they wanted to play in the Big Ten. Maybe they wanted to stay close to home. But they weren't coming here because they believed that Indiana could win a Big Ten title. That all changed when we got here. Now, granted, we were using the portal. We were using some older guys and saying, hey, look, you saw what we did at James Madison. We're going to do the same thing here. So we got some buy-in that way. But now we have kids that believe. We've got kids that are all ball. We have kids that can't get enough ball. Kids are going to text me tonight about, a cut-up that we talked about because they want to improve. Mm-hmm. And so I think what you're seeing is what was maybe a basketball school, a party school, a school with a great Kelly business school.
Yeah.
Right. Those were the emphases when I was here before. Now, what's the emphasis when we recruit somebody? Come up here and win a championship with us.
Amen. Amen. Now, you just mentioned Coach Signetti and your long-standing relationship with him. I think that was kind of right on time for as we're going through strategic chronologically through your career. You've known him and coached with him for 11 seasons. After Ohio State, is this when you guys kind of get your first connection together? If so, just tell us how you guys linked up and how the journey started.
Yeah, so that's it. I did 1 year as a GA here at Indiana and Bloomington. Went over. I was with Coach Meyer for the 13 season. I did 1 year as a GA there, and then as soon as that season ended, my brother was coaching. And again, this is all about networks, right? We hear this all the time in our professions about it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Well, my brother and one of my close friends was coaching with Coach Signetti. My brother was the offensive coordinator, and my friend Jim Chapin, who's now the offensive coordinator at Central Michigan, were both working for Coach Signetti. So that's how I got my foot in the door. You know, they had a defensive line spot come open. I hit them up, said, "You think you can get me in front of Coach Signetti?" And they said, we can get it done. Put in a good word for me. Drove over there, stayed with my brother one night, and the next day was my interview with Coach Signetti. Woke up, went in to Coach Signetti's house, had about a 2-hour interview, if you want to call it that. We talked ball for 2 hours, and that's how I got connected, and have really been with him ever since. I had one stint where I went out west and coached backers at UC Davis, but outside of that, I mean, it's been, I've been with Coach Sig this whole time.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, once again, I got to ask, anytime the interview things popped up, because, in my few interviews I did in the coaching profession, none of them were like each other. I mean, they were all very different. You're interviewing with different people. I mean, yeah, you're going to talk ball. Yeah, they want to know what kind of person you are. But, there's some intricacies that can get pretty unique with the individual person. Anything stand out from you from that interview with Coach Signetti years ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's different about that one is I know I got in talking about your first interview to those young coaches looking at their first interview, and that one's all about no X's and O's involved there. Coach Signetti is different, and granted, again, depends on where you're at in your career when you go into these interviews, right? Yeah. I had coached a number of years. I had been a GA for 2 years. He asked me, one of those questions like, "Who are you? What are you all about as a coach? Or what are your core principles?" Something like that. One of those questions that like you get in every interview you're ever going to have. After that, it did jump into football, but that's looking back at it, that should not surprise me. Like Coach Signetti is all ball 100% of the time. So that one was like, how are you going to coach stance?
Yeah.
You talk about like detail, nuance, drill progression, teaching progression, even bigger schematics. What all coverages did you guys do? Like that one was as thorough of a football interview or a conversation as you can have with somebody. I think what he was doing is he just wanted a ball coach. Yeah. He wanted a guy that just lived, drank, ate football, and I'm your guy for that sort of thing.
Now, and this might not apply to you, and I kind of hope it does, because like right now, as you look at it, you are on the top of the list of defensive coordinators in the country. Was there ever in any of these interviews, kind of early on, was there ever any of these moments where they ask you a question and you just straight up don't know, or you don't have a great answer? Do you recall any of those moments? If so, how do you handle that? And if you don't, that's fine too.
Yeah, nothing like jumps out to me, but I will say it took me a long time, and maybe even still to this day, when somebody asked me one of those like, "Tell me about yourself" questions. Mm-hmm. I feel like some guys have this like perfect response. Yeah. You know what I mean? They know exactly where to start that answer. They know the exact flow. It's almost like they have it memorized.
Right.
If you do have that, that's good. Now, don't be a robot, but you should have that thing prepared and ironed out and just nice and fluid. I still feel like I'm clunky with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I still feel like if I got asked that 10 different times, my flow would be different every single time. So if anything, those are the ones that stump me. I don't get stumped too much about football because fortunately along the way, I've just been with so many different people now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. It's just, okay, well, I've done it this way before, I've done it that way. Football questions aren't going to stump me, but questions about other things typically do.
Outside of football.
Outside of football. And what I say is, hey, lean into that too. who cares? Who cares? Like, you're not gonna win or lose the job based off of like how well you convey who you are, as long as your voice gets heard.
Yeah.
As long as you have your final message land.
That's right. Now, IUP, you had 2 seasons there. I don't know. I know you go to Cal, and I kind of want to talk about 2 things on that. So let me go ahead and ask you, what led you to take the job and kind of break away from Coach Signetti and go out west for that opportunity?
Yeah, just money. I mean, that was the only thing. And then Coach Sig, to be honest with you, he kind of gave me the blessing to do that. My first year at IUP, this is one that he talks about a lot publicly. But yeah, I'm making $7,500. There was like this old dilapidated house that all the coaches stayed in. When I moved out, matter of fact, the bathroom floor came caving in to the living room.
Okay.
Like, so man, I was just living in squalor. I was on welfare. I almost left after my first year, and Coach Sig said, "Don't leave yet. I can get you more money." So he took me to from 7,500 to like 10, and I was like, man, like I made it, I guess, you know. Yeah. UC Davis calls. That was an FCS job. Plus, I wanted to get back to coaching backers. This was going to be my first time really getting back to owning the linebacker room, which was something I wanted in my career. And I walked into Coach Sig and I said, "Hey, listen," they called and he said, "Listen, for your career, you got to take that one." He's like, "I won't be here forever. I'll call you." So I knew that our paths would link back up, and he gave me his blessing on that one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to kind of lean into the next one. Like, you know, sometimes you're with a great guy, you love each other, and then you break off, and sometimes it's hard to reconnect. And you guys got back together relatively quickly there. Now, I do have to say this. You need to get a picture of that house, because you said dilapidated, which I don't even know. Never heard that word in squalor. So this thing had to be struggling now. So
I don't even know if those are the right adjectives, but that's how I felt when I was living in it. It was something.
That's all right, man. So just real quick, just talk about that year at that year at UC Davis, and you know what you were able to gather to help you be better prepared as you continue to move through this profession.
Yeah, well, it was another chance to learn from a really good head coach. Coach Ron Gould was out there at the time, and I think he was in his 3rd or 4th year. But I'll tell you, that staff, both sides of the ball, was one of the best I've worked with, to be honest with you. Like, I look at the names that were on that, and coordinators everywhere. Jim Chabe was on that staff. He's the OC at Central Michigan. Burt Watts has been coaching the NFL for a long time. Dave Braun was our D-line coach. He's the head coach at Northwestern. You got myself. Coach Wes Nurse was there. Coach Matt Ulrich is coaching the Mid-American Conference. I mean, we had a good room. I pulled a lot from those guys. And one of the cool things about that job, Mario, is it was a defense that wanted to change a little bit. They had been doing the same system for 3 years, I think it was. In year 4, they're like, we need to change. We're not having the amount of success that we want. How can we put our guys in better positions? And you're talking about a low ego room, a room that was collaborating. That's what we had at Davis. And I remember things didn't work out. You know, we didn't have quite the year that we wanted, but we took huge strides as a defense. I remember coming off that year thinking, that's what a good defensive room should be.
Yeah.
A lot of voices being heard, a lot of guys collaborating, coming up with a plan, and then attacking together.
Yeah.
I felt like at Davis we really had that.
You know, that's awesome that you said that, because all the years that I coached, I don't think I started recognizing what a good room was as an offensive guy until I was done with the profession, you know, until I was here at the AFCA. And that's pretty cool that you would recognize that at that point in time. You know, just a small thing that probably helped you be the coordinator that you are, just recognizing that, man, that staff continuity, especially in those individual rooms, man, that's important. And I mean, it can make or break a lot of stuff. You know, I don't know if you had the opportunity to be on some of the bad ones, but I've been in a few of those rooms where it's just tough. It's tough to get out there and communicate to your kids. You know, you feel like, I'm happy we're out of that room. I'm tired of this guy. He's tired of me. So that's awesome that you were kind of able to experience that. And not only experience, but recognize it. Now, I did want to ask, how difficult was it for you to walk in there to Coach Signetti, to talk to him about that job? Was it just something that you just knew you had to do, or were you kind of thinking about it a little bit, a little nervous about having that conversation?
No, fortunately, you know, Coach Signetti and I mean, we're cut from a pretty similar cloth, you know, so I don't get too nervous going in there. I'm always going to go in and be honest with him. And the beautiful thing about Coach Signetti is that's all he knows. He doesn't have time to play games or, you know, it's just always straightforward.
Yeah.
And you guys probably see when he's talking in the media. You know, I get the question all the time, is that how he is? Yeah, I mean, he's just going to shoot you straight all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I had no reservations. I walked in and said, hey, Coach, I got a call, you know, and he says, all right, let's think about it. You know, he's always willing to say, like, let's pros and cons of this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even to this day, I get calls this day, you know, this cycle or that cycle. I'll go in and talk to him. Sometimes, you know, he's got a point that's different than what I saw it as.
Yeah.
So you should. I'm hoping that every coach out there is working for a man that's at least going to allow them to sit down, be transparent with them, and we'll do the same in return. To me, that's a sign of a good football coach, and I work with a damn good one.
Amen. Now, just before we get back to Elon, and you were connecting with Coach Signetti, just wanted to talk really, really briefly about taking that trip out west, because, you know, I don't know exactly where Manchester and Adrian are, but I'm assuming they're kind of all in that same general area of where you've been through majority of your career up into this point, Tom. Just from a personal standpoint, I mean, it's kind of a big jump, a big move. Maybe it's no different from, you know, moving from Ohio State to IUP, but personally, you know, what were you thinking about taking this trip out to Cali to go coach ball?
Yeah, I was at a point in my life, you know, just with finances being hard and the way they were, and you know, I felt like I had nothing to lose. Okay. So it's not like I was nervous about going out there and being homesick or away from my people. I didn't have a whole lot, you know. All I had was this profession and my goals and aspirations. And I knew that this trip going out west and taking that chance was a chance to step forward in my career. So I had no reservations about that either. The other thing is I thought it was good for me in terms of recruiting, because a lot of people will say things like this. They'll say, you can't recruit in Texas unless you're from Texas, or you can't recruit West Coast kids unless you're like. What I believe in is you can recruit if you can recruit. If you can evaluate and then isolate a prospect and have good conversation and be a good human being as you recruit somebody. I can recruit in Alaska. I can recruit in Russia. It's about evaluate and recruit. Sell yourself. What do you have that you can give this prospect? So part of me wanted to prove that to myself too.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. I mean, relationships. I mean, a kid is a kid. Yeah. I totally agree with you there. So how'd you end up back on the opposite coast in 2017 at Elon coaching linebackers?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we had the 1 year at Davis, and then we got let go. And Maury, that was a low point for me there, because you know, I thought that was going to be my first step towards bigger, brighter lights. And immediately I'm right back to where I started. You know, I don't have a job, and fate would just have it that at that exact same time all that was going down, Coach Signetti was on campus at Elon and deciding that was a move he was going to make. So I would say it was within, you know, 24 to 48 hour period from, you know, me being out of a job to getting a phone call from Coach Signetti that says, hey, let's get the band back together, man. We're going to roll down here to Elon in North Carolina and get this thing done. So again, very grateful. Part of that's just dumb luck too. You know, there's a lot of coaches out there, and it doesn't go that way. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, because if all of a sudden you have the season that you were hoping for there at UC Davis, you know, maybe that Elon thing isn't even attractive to you. And, you know, you never get back in sync with Coach. You know, like you said, I mean, you can do all the right things, know all the right people. Sometimes you got to have that timing. You know, timing can be just as important as all of it. So, Elon, from my understanding, I don't quite know what the state of the program when you guys got there. Obviously, they were hiring a new coach, so either he took a better job or he was let go. You know, what was the state of that program, and how did you guys get that thing up and going?
Yeah, it was a program in the rut, man. It was I want to say they had 8 wins over the previous 3 seasons. So this was a program that was struggling. They didn't let the previous staff go so much as the head coach decided to take a different opportunity. Became an offensive coordinator. I want to say at Florida International, Florida Atlantic. So long story short, is they had the vacancy and went with Coach Signetti. Went in, and to be honest with you, Mario, it felt a lot like my year at Indiana. It felt like this was a program that had a lot to sell. Beautiful campus, great academics. I mean, the campus looked like a country club, golf course, pristine, just beautiful. And what they had was a bunch of really good kids that were there for reasons that didn't include winning championships.
Yeah.
And if you know anything at this point about Coach Signetti, that's not what he's about. He's about, like, we're going to come in here, it's going to be all ball. We're going to punish people and hold a trophy up. So, again, similar thing to what we did when we got to Indiana. We had to flip that mindset, change the way people think, start working really hard, and change the expectations of the individuals that were in that organization.
Yeah.
Got it done in fairly short order. Ripped off our first eight wins, I want to say. I think we went 8-0 that first year before we ran into somebody. So we got it turned around quickly and started winning quickly too.
Yeah. Now, just from a personal standpoint, you mentioned going to UC Davis to get back in that linebackers room. Now here at Elon, you're coaching your linebackers. Oh, what was the difference? I don't want to say of approach, because I know you well enough to know the approach wasn't much different, but just the comfortability, just being able to coach your position. What kind of swag, I guess, did you walk in there with, just knowing that, man, this is my group, I'm a backer, I'm in here with my backers?
Yeah, I would say that was when I first became the linebackers coach that you know me as, where having done it another year at UC Davis, kind of started remembering some of those things as a player. So now I'm seeing it both through the lens of how I was as a player, that year as a coach, and to me, that's really where I started to get that swagger back, that confidence in my coaching and in my teaching. Now, granted, you have to learn a new system, right? I got a new defensive coordinator now, totally different than UC Davis. Now we're doing this 3-3 stack defense. But once you coach enough ball, once you've been around enough people, scheme doesn't matter. Scheme doesn't matter. It's about job descriptions. It's about the technique that needs to be utilized to complete a job description. So, yeah, at that point, there was no looking back. I was at the top of my game, I think, coaching my backers, and had a great defensive coordinator, Tony Trisciani, who's the head coach there now at Elon. I think he's one of the most winning coaches at Elon history at this point. He was a fantastic defensive coordinator, learned his system, and had a lot of fun in it.
Okay, so with him, when you guys went to James Madison, did he stay and take over that program? Or okay, I got you.
Yeah.
And so let's go ahead and kind of go there. And in 2019, you guys head over to James Madison. When Coach took that job, because some guys have never experienced kind of been on the staff where we win, we do a good job, majority of us kind of head over to this next spot, and then we win, do a good job, majority of us head over to the next spot. What was that process like? Because this is kind of your first truly moving with him, because you were coming back from UC Davis to Elon, although y'all had been together before. What was it like? Did he take the job, wait a few weeks to call you, or what was that process?
Yeah, I think I've been with him long enough now to where I'm kind of on the front end of some of those conversations.
Yeah.
So it was more, there were conversations being had before he even accepted the job. That was likely to go down. Put a little research into it. That way, if it does go down, we're hitting the ground running.
Ready to recruit, all that stuff. Yeah.
No doubt. So when it happened officially, I mean, it happened really fast. I mean, we were all in a little carpool on the way up, get to Harrisonburg, get out, walk into that facility and take the thing over the same way we had done at Elon. It was kind of like, hey, well, let's get this thing started. Let's bring the right energy in,
right.
And let's set the standard as early on as we possibly can. Now, granted, JMU was a different deal because that was already a successful program. They were already rolling. So I feel like we were ahead of the schedule at that point. We're walking to a room where those young men already kind of had some of those same expectations that we had for them. They wanted to return to greatness, and unfortunately, that's what we brought them.
Amen. Now, the one thing that was different was you guys kind of headed over. You were co-DC those first couple of years there at James Madison. Co-DC means something different at every university, in regards to how they break down duties and how they call, all the details. What was it like for you to get that title, and how did you guys kind of manage it, if you can share?
Yeah. Well, first, how I got that title was kind of a unique situation because, as we mentioned, Tony Trisciani stayed back at Elon and got the head job. So when I got up to Harrisonburg, I had a missed call from Coach Trish, called him back, and he said, hey, come back to Elon. Like, your car's already packed. I know it is. Come on back and be the defensive coordinator here. Well, at that stage of my life, I knew that I felt that I was ready to run a defense. I thought it was my time. So I was pretty torn, pretty conflicted. And young coaches, anybody listening to this as a young coach, you're going to have these moments like, what's the right path here? Is the right path to go back to Elon and run the show? Is the right path to stay at JMU? That was a hard one. So what did I do? I called the people that I trust. I called the people that had been with me and knew me, and leaned on them, and ultimately decided to go into Coach Diggs and say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about going back. Here's what's been offered. That's how we came to, hey, let me get a co-DC title on you. You'll have, more say in some of the game plan. But ultimately, he wanted to hire his DC, which was Corey Heatherman.
Yeah.
I was grateful for the co-DC title. Got a little bump in pay, which sometimes one of those titles gave you a little bump in pay. But at the end of the day, that was Corey Heatherman's defense, and I was just his right-hand man, if you will.
There you go. Okay. Now, this is around the time frame, I think, where me and you met. And, you applied to be a part of the 35 on 35, was accepted. And if you don't mind, just share a little bit about, what you took away from that and why you would hopefully encourage any young guy to, partake in that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a fantastic event. I mean, as much as you'll learn from the people that are speaking, you're going to be surrounded by high-level football coaches, too, that are in the same boat as you are.
Yeah.
So as the years have gone by, I've stayed in touch with a lot of those guys. It's like almost every off season, I'll talk to one of those guys and we'll do a Zoom. We'll touch base and share stories, share scheme. That's going to be a network of guys that you can stay with for the rest of your career, to be honest with you. And then of the speakers that come up, there's a lot to learn there, but those are guys that are at the top of their game too. Just like you're sitting in that seat as a 35 on 35. You are the tip of the spear in the profession. Well, these guys are speaking to you are in the same boat. I got my agent at that event. I got my financial advisor at that event. Met a lot of good people and learned a lot too. So again, if you could track it all back to like where it all started, I mean, it's kind of getting back with Coach Signetti, 35 on 35. It's like, man, maybe I am going to make it. I don't have to live in any dilapidated old houses anymore. I might get out of here.
That's a dilapidated to get. Yeah. And, that's awesome, man. So I appreciate you sharing that and your experience. And, especially as we were sitting there in the final four of the playoffs, and I was looking around and I'm like, man, this coordinator is, 35 on 35, class of 22. And, it was you, it was Heatherman, it was, a couple other guys. And so, I mean, I was extremely proud just to see, you guys continue to blossom in your careers, man. And what a special opportunity to be able to be around you guys on our end, just to be around you guys at that time of your career where you're looking promising and to be able to fulfill it. So it's been cool to watch from our end. Now, and you had the opportunity to kind of run a show there the last couple of years at James Madison as the defensive coordinator. At that point in time, how do you handle that? How do you handle being a co-DC? I think Heatherman left to Rutgers or something like that at that point in time. I might have my timeline messed up, but you bump into the full-time role. You kind of keep doing what you guys have been doing. Obviously, you put your own flavor on it. Do you totally change it? Like what happens at that point in time, when you take over full-time as the coordinator?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is kind of like what you said is we were having a lot of success on defense with Coach Heatherman's system. And what I would recommend to anybody that kind of steps into the defensive coordinator position the same way that I did is if the defense is already flourishing, don't come in and try to reinvent the wheel. That's not what you're getting hired to do. Yeah. What you're getting hired to do is hopefully have some continuity within the scheme. Try to adjust to what the defense had success with, and then maybe you can build upon it. But we already had this foundation. So for me, it was like, okay, if the foundation's in place, what can, what flavor, what spices can I put onto this thing? But I'll be honest, going from linebackers coach, co-DC to the DC role didn't change a whole lot outside of me running the film. I'm in charge of the Cowboy now. I hit start, I hit rewind, I hit fast forward. Right. And then ultimately the other thing, and I always mention this to a coach that's stepping into this role too, is you are the final say. You are the decision maker. So for any of you guys out there that aren't comfortable, oh man, if this doesn't work, it's on my head. Hey man, that's what you get paid to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And not saying that every decision that you make is going to be the right one. We all have misses. Right. I did too. I had plenty of them, but the buck stops with you, so take accountability. You can collaborate and get all these ideas, but you're going to get 3-4 different ideas. It's up to you to make the decision for that room, and then just make sure that when you guys leave that room as a defensive staff, everybody's on board, that everybody believes in the plan. And that's all it was for me. You become the decision maker and you're in charge of the Cowboy.
There you go. There you go. Now, you guys were able to have, like you said, a tremendous amount of success at Elon. I know you were there for 2 years, kind of had to gap, but obviously at IUP, you guys were able to have a tremendous amount of success. Then Indiana comes knocking. And the unique thing is, I don't think I'd ever, whenever I was watching those games and just thinking about you and all that kind of stuff, I didn't remember the GA opportunity that you had 15 years prior to, to being here. Were you looking at that job and saying, man, last time I was in there, that's a tough deal. But the change that you guys can kind of bring, how were you looking at that opportunity, having that previous experience?
Yeah, I'll tell you the same thing I told Coach Signetti, because he pulled me in, again, kind of being on the front end of some of those decisions. Not that I was making the decision, but just, he's willing to ask for my advice on things, especially knowing that I had been there. What I told him was, Coach, last time I was there, it was a bad situation. I didn't think we had the right guys on the bus. And what I told him was, the facilities are there. I know the fan base. If you can wake them up, if you can get them out of that coma they've been in, I said that place will take off. And I truly believe that. I told him it would take, it's probably going to take an overhaul of the roster, just getting some of the people that are here that don't believe out and getting people that do believe in.
Yeah.
But I said, Coach, I think you can be highly successful there with the right organization. Plus, I had been with Coach long enough now. I had seen him do this. I had seen him do this with my own eyes. Take over an IUP program and bring it back to brilliance.
Yeah.
Take over an Elon, a struggling Elon. Like, I knew what he was capable of. If I could be right there with him to get it done, I just felt so confident that he'd get it done. And that's what I told him. And I think it was the next day we were rolling.
Yeah, amen. Well, kind of as we start heading to a close here on the podcast, obviously national championship is the ultimate goal for any level, of ball, conference championship, playoffs, and then ultimately to win it all. That's any goal. But when you start having that success, and you have the quotes from Coach Signetti starting to have a ton of these quotes kind of in the same realm, but the rat poison from Nick Saban from back in the day, those kind of quotes about complacency and how hard it is to kind of just continue to line up and do it again. It wasn't all easy. I mean, I know you guys made it look easy on Saturdays, but I know I've been in those rooms before. Not the championship room, unfortunately, but I've been in those rooms before. I know how challenging that stuff can be. What were some of the tough moments for you as you've been on this kind of fantastic run over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same things you hit on. It's everybody telling us how good we are. It's everybody telling us, that we're expected to win, and now the target's on our back and how that's going to change things. And it's all this outside noise that has no bearing on the game, and certainly has no bearing on the process that takes place on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of Coach Signetti's gifts, is he's always able to refocus the team and focus on a day-to-day plan, because that's ultimately all this is. This is a one-day process, one day at a time, and everybody speaking the same language, rowing in the same direction. But yeah, eliminating some of that stuff and some of the distractions, that was probably the hardest part. And thankfully, again, Coach Signetti is really good at this. And any head coach at the high level is good at this. I know I've heard stories from Coach Signetti about Coach Nick Saban, same way. I work for Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is going to stomp out complacency. I can promise you that.
Yeah. High
achievers are aware of the threat of complacency. And so fortunately, through his leadership, I mean, that was just a one day at a time type of operation all the way to the end.
There you go. Well, I got two last things for you here. For that Coach Haines that was living in that dilapidated house, making $7,500, trying to figure out how I'm going to make this money stretch until the next payday, and all the stuff that I went through, and a lot of guys went through, a lot of guys on that staff. I know Ola Adams, 35 guy, Rod Ojong, and some of those staff members kind of all went through it. For that young Coach Haines, that there's hundreds of them out there right now that are trying to figure out if this business is for them. Can they ever make it to that seat that you're sitting in? What advice would you give them?
I would tell them to make sure that they stay where their feet are. Stay where your feet are. Do a great job where you're at. do a great job where you're at. And I don't care what your role is. If you're the strength and conditioning coach, D-line coach, I've been there. If you're out there painting the field before game day, I've been there. If you're washing the game pants, I've been there. Just do a great job at it. Don't focus on the end goal. When young Bryant Haines wasn't thinking about, man, when I make it to be the DC at a Big Ten, I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about, man, am I doing the right thing right? Am I doing a good job washing these pants right now? Yep. And as soon as that was over, I was running to my position room and I was like, am I teaching the right things? Are my players executing well? Yeah. Get lost in the right here, right now. Dig your feet in and be really good where the hell you're at. If you are, you'll take a step forward from there and then do the same thing. Repeat. And then one day, hopefully, God willing, you can look back at it all, laugh, and say, I came out of that house.
That's right. Amen. Well, last question I got for you here. This past season, you were honored as the 2025 AFCA Assistant Coach of the Year. Now, this is not something that's voted on by news writers or anything like that. This is voted on by people that sit in offices like yourself and understand the difficulties of producing, elite defenses and offenses on a weekly basis. Just kind of having, that perspective that your peers recognize your work, and not just your work, because I know there's a lot more to it than just yourself, but what you guys been able to do over there as a program, as a defensive staff and defensive players. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a huge honor. I think what adds to the value of this award is exactly what you said. It's who votes on it.
Yeah.
It's not a media pundit, or just somebody that read my name at some point. The guys that have gone against our defense and respect what me and his staff do. That's coming from somebody that's in the know and has a true respect for us, and that's a great honor. That being said, as I said with the Broyles too, it's like it's weird to accept an individual award in what is totally a team effort. So I only accept that award on behalf of the guys that I get a chance to work with, my staff. Some of the guys you mentioned: Ola Adams, Rod Ojong, Pat Coons is my defensive tackles coach, Buda Williams, my defensive ends coach. I mean, I get the final say, and I'm running the Cowboy. But the individualized coaching that takes place on a day-to-day basis, that's why, I'm going to proudly hold that award up, and I'm honored to say that I'm the AFCA Assistant Coach of the Year. That's a blessing.
Amen. Well, it probably doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot from me, but super proud of you, man. Just how you represented, the profession first and foremost. Represented those coaches that start off at Manchester College. You represented those coaches that, take a leap and go out to the West Coast and end up getting fired, and just kind of continue to chug forward through the profession. And, more importantly for me, just the 35 under 35, how you represented that group and been able to hoist that national championship trophy at the end of the year, man, is the ultimate icing on the cake, man. So hopefully you got to stop to smell the roses for a little bit. I know the work doesn't stop here, and I'm sure Coach Signetti won't allow for it to stop there, and you either. So you guys keep chopping wood, man. We'll be cheering you on from afar, man, and hopefully you guys can keep winning. We bumped our convention to February, so hopefully I get the opportunity to see you here soon, okay?
Oh, it's 100%. I'm going to be there, baby. I appreciate you, Mario. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man. You have a good one, okay?
All right, you too, Bob.
All right, thanks.
When communication counts, trust the headsets trusted by the best. From high schools to the biggest college programs, CoachComm keeps coaches connected and teams prepared to win. Learn more at CoachComm.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm, on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, Visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.